Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be continuing our terraforming series. Today we'll be looking onward to the outer solar system for a planet or world to colonize. And this time in this video we will be considering future technologies because I think it won't be into the future before we can even do something like this, so that's why I say that. I've explained this already in a video, but if you haven't seen it, don't worry. I will mention it as we go along. But I've identified some likely candidates, and we'll be looking at several factors, namely being magnetosphere, liquid or ice water, surface area, atmosphere composition, and the distance from the Earth. In this video, we'll be using a point system. I'll explain it as I go on, but first place will get 3 points, second place will get 2, third place will get 1, and whoever comes in fourth gets 0. There are 4 candidates, so without further ado, let's get started. Our 4 candidates is Ganymede, Titan, Europa, and Triton. Starting with surface area, Ganymede has 87 million kilometers squared, so it gets 3 points. Titan has 83 million kilometers squared. Europa has 30 million, almost 31 million. And Triton has 23 million, so Triton doesn't get any points. Titan gets 2, and Europa gets 1. And we'll tally them all up, and the top 2 move forward, so that's what I meant. Alright, so moving on to distance, Europa is a moon of Jupiter. It's closer, and so is Ganymede. They kind of tie, so they're both going to get 3 points here. So Europa has 4 points now, and Ganymede has 6. Titan's the next closest, being a moon of Saturn. It gets 2 more points and it has 4. Triton is a moon of Neptune, so it's much further than the others, so it gets 1 point. So it technically came in third instead of last year. Moving on to our next topic, we have atmospheric composition and pressure. Titan is the heaviest atmosphere of the options by far. It wins. It has a mostly nitrogen atmosphere, and it has 1.5 times the atmosphere of Earth, so it wins. It gets 3 more points for a total of 7. Triton is the one with the next most atmosphere. The other 2 are so low that it technically wins. It only has 1.4% the atmosphere of Earth, mostly due to low gravity, which we can fix with artificial gravity. This is kind of what I meant when I said the future technologies would come into play. By the time we do this, we should have the access to that kind of technology, so we can at least mitigate this to some extent. So it gets 2 more points for a total of 3. Ganymede has a very tenuous atmosphere. It does have an oxygen atmosphere. It's just so low that it doesn't matter. It's less than a 1 bar. There is, however, solid nitrogen on Ganymede that we can melt and turn it into a gaseous form of the nitrogen that we know on Earth. So that is something to keep in mind, which is why I'm putting it in third. You have various technologies like an artificial star to also melt the ice. So for that reason, I'll put it in third with plus 1 points for a total of 7. So far, Ganymede and Titan are tied right now. Europa is last. It has a tenuous atmosphere, primarily composed of molecular oxygen. So there is trace amounts of oxygen, plus water vapor, atomic hydrogen, and molecular oxygen. It also has less than 0.1 bar, so it comes in last place. On to the next topic. Our next topic is magnetosphere, a pretty important thing to have for a planet, all things considered. These planets are further away from the sun, but there are still dangers with radiation, as we're about to find out here in a second. So, Ganymede is a permanent intrinsic magnetic field, independent of Jupiter's. So because of this, not only does Ganymede have its own magnetic field, but you also need to include Jupiter, so it kind of has 2 magnetic fields, if anything. Or looking at all options, it has the most protection from cosmic rays by far. Next up is actually Triton's. It actually does have its own induced magnetic field. It mostly orbits within Neptune's magnetosphere. Because of the ocean, the internal ocean on Triton, the moon's ionosphere creates a secondary induced magnetic field. So it technically has 2 magnetic fields as well. There's Neptune, and there's the one that's induced because of its salty ocean. I'll say that it also comes in second place. So far we have Ganymede with 10 points. It gets another 3 points here. So with a total of 10. Triton has 4 points. It's 2 more. Third place we have Titan. It has an induced magnetosphere because of Saturn's magnetic field. When inside Saturn's magnetosphere, Titan's atmosphere interacts with the planet's plasma, causing external field lines to drape around the moon and form a magnetic tail. Titan retains remnants of Saturn's magnetic field for up to 3 hours after exiting the magnetosphere, creating a temporary protective shield. So because it's temporary, and to be honest with you, the planet doesn't spend all that long outside of Saturn's magnetic field. So based on research, Titan spends 95% of its time within Saturn's magnetic field and only 5% outside of it. So, and we can also just build our own artificial one to compensate, but there is one there, as opposed to Europa, which does not possess a intrinsic magnetic field. Instead, there's a weak induced one created by electrical currents within the subsurface salty ocean. So much like Triton, its magnetic field kind of comes from electrical currents. And in fact, when I looked it up, it only has 1/6 the strength of Ganymede's electric field. So based on that, I'm going to assume it's at the very bottom. On to ice water content, the last category here. So the presence of water is obviously important for humans, whether that be for consumption or growing food. Ganymede holds the most water in the solar system at 11.4 billion kilometers cubed. It has a subsurface water of 8.4 billion in its ice shell. So yes, it wins by far. And Titan's up next with 8 billion kilometers cubed. Europa is third with 3.48 billion kilometers cubed. And then Triton is last. It doesn't have as much water. Doesn't matter what I say. It didn't even make the top 5 when I looked it up. So it's just out entirely. Let's look at the point total here. Ganymede has 13 points. Titan has 9 points. Europa had 5, and Triton, I think, had like 4 or 5. It doesn't matter. Triton and Europa aren't even worth considering. So, honestly, only Ganymede and Titan are the only two that we'll really be looking at. At this point in the video, you may have noticed I wasn't really that concerned with surface gravity or temperature. That's because, as I mentioned before, I think we will have advanced technology like artificial gravity and like artificial stars, things that can produce heat for us. So, I wasn't all too concerned with that, to be honest with you. But let's talk about Ganymede's advantages and disadvantages, because there are some, and we'll take a deeper dive now that we kind of look past the surface here. So it has more surface area, as we said before, 4 million more miles. That is a bit, obviously. A more powerful magnetosphere. It actually has 2, not just 1. It has more water, and finally, it's closer to Earth and closer to the inner solar system in general than Titan is, obviously. Proximity to the asteroid belt for mining. So is a strong contender to be the winner of this whole thing, okay? However, it also has a lot less atmosphere, which even with future technologies, it will take centuries, possibly thousands of years to get enough atmosphere so that we can actually survive on the planet at all. Now, we can create it as needed via paraterraforming in our last video. We just create it dense enough where people are living. So there is a way to get around it. I'm just saying it will take quite some time for us to cover the whole planet. So whereas Titan already has pretty much an atmosphere similar to Earth's, now you would need more oxygen, but that would take a lot less time than doing all of Ganymede. So there's no need for us to do that at all, really, for Titan. It is a much faster process, if you ask me. Meanwhile, Ganymede orbits Jupiter once every a little over 7 days, Earth days, and thus we would have to take measures to prevent it from becoming too hot for life to exist, since it would be exposed to sunlight for 3.5 days straight. It's tightly locked to Jupiter, and it doesn't really have any rotation. So yeah, the speed at which it orbits Jupiter would have to be increased, which is pretty much impossible. Well, even with advanced technology, I think that'd be pretty difficult to pull off, unless we like hit it with asteroids, but that'd be pretty complicated. So that's another step we'd have to worry about as well. And you have like a Jupiter eclipse, which would make the planet a lot colder. Or moon. It's a planet mass moon, okay? Leave me alone. It would make it a lot colder, so... And then there's one big flaw I've not even mentioned yet for Ganymede. And that's Jupiter's radiation belt. It's the most intense of the entire solar system. And basically it makes flying around Jupiter, if we have astronauts doing various missions or what have you, they'd be exposed to a lot of radiation. And that radiation is much higher than Saturn's radiation. So that's another thing we wouldn't have to worry about. It's obviously further from the sun as well, so it gets less radiation. That Titan, that is. Basically, this introduces a pretty big radiation hazard for our astronauts and spacecraft. Now, the Juno spacecraft, which is what was used to fly around Jupiter, it does have radiation-proof material, mostly made of titanium after I looked it up, so it is able to withstand it, but it is an extra step we have to worry about. Whereas Titan, you really don't have to worry about that at all, for several reasons. As I said, it basically has an Earth-like atmosphere, and we can pretty much make a pretty tiny artificial magnetosphere to protect us from the time that we're outside of Saturn's magnetosphere. So it wouldn't be that hard or complicated to overcome. It wouldn't take thousands of years either. So at least in terms of time, I think Titan is easier there. And the fact that its atmosphere is 1.5 times denser than Earth, it also provides protection from radiation. y'all didn't know, atmosphere does protect us from radiation, so that's another thing. We don't have to worry about building underground habitats, which you might have to do on Ganymede, depending on how strong our artificial magnetosphere is. So, another thing we have to worry about at all, we don't need pressurized suits either. That's a good thing. And while it does have a longer orbital period around Saturn at 15 days, it does not seem to have that problem where if it stays out in the sun for too long, it basically gets hotter and hotter. I'm assuming because it's much further away from the sun than Ganymede is, as we discussed earlier. So it kind of, that was a disadvantage and advantage at the exact same time. Now, it also does have stable liquid methane and ethane lakes that we can use for fuel and feedstock, so that will be helpful. It also has abundant water ice on the surface, so it is further from Earth. It is slightly smaller and it has slightly less water. All in all, I think they both are pretty good candidates. I'll pick Titan simply because while it does have more disadvantages technically, I do think that those disadvantages are more easily overcome and take less time to do so, whereas Ganymede has its disadvantages are a lot harder to overcome in terms of the amount of time required. So, what do you think? You can argue either or, I think, but honestly, I already picked Titan for Orbium, so I'm kind of stuck with it. Okay, it doesn't matter. I picked Titan for our older solar system planet. I do think you can have Ganymede as a secondary option, perhaps as a space base of some kind. And who said we only have to pick one or the other, right? Just pick both. I mean, what's the problem with that? You can even pick Triton or Europa, or even Enceladus, whatever. Honestly, you could have picked them all in a really far future, and even after, if humanity's even around after the sun becomes a red giant, Europa or Triton might be good candidates, or even Titan or Ganymede at that point, because we need like a new planet entirely. So that will wrap up this video. Yeah, tell me what you guys think again. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all